Whoa.
Fancy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the discussion of the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Tonight, we're going to do an introduction for you all. And both of us have such a deep love and background. Holy cow. Minnassa with her background in the Holy Scripture. And that learning about the parts that didn't quite make it in there and why is really important to know. If you really want to know the whole ins and outs of how the Christian church came about, this is really important. And we're not saying that you need to be a Christian or not be a Christian or whatever. It's just interesting information that most Christians aren't even taught.
It's true. I would say even most people in this country don't know about they don't know about how in some ways the religious texts all work together, and that you've got this and this and this and this and this group with them. And then like the Nag Hammadi, and I'll talk about a couple other things. There's other things. It's not just one book. It's just that one book they got as you were saying, the church is okay.
Right. This book, this book.
Correct. Yeah.
I've got all my references right here.
All right.
Tonight, we're here to talk about my well-dog-eared book.
Where did I move mine? I had mine on my desk.
As you can tell, it has been well-loved because there's this is my history with it. Coffee stains. It's all marked and this is a great book. This is the collection of them all. Now you can buy them individually as well. Each one of the different, like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Judas. There's so many. You can buy each one of those individually.
All right. So why don't you say hi to some people?
Yes, my goodness. Hey, Teresa Levine, my beautiful sweet friend.
Were you deleting Teresa so she couldn't say hi to me?
I went to go plug in my computer and I set the charger down and it landed on top of my phone and it deleted her. I put her in delete. I was like, that's about weird. I've never seen anything like that before. But the magnetism and stuff in these phone chargers. So, my laptop charger, that's powerful. So good to see you, Teresa. I love you. And you too, Dolly, Wolf Girl Oracle, and Renee.
That's right, my Memphis sister. Renee's my Memphis sister.
Yes. And it's my sister too. Oh, my buddy. Sharon Sipe, I love you.
Sharon Sipe, the queen. The queen.
You are everywhere. Everybody loves you. Thank you
so much, Sharon, for being here. And for sharing my link.
I love what you do, Sharon. It's, I go into a chat and I'm expecting to be just like it was when I was a moderator. And there's Sharon. Kdmoonchild's World, go see Katie Moon. I love you, sweetie. Thank you. So, the Nag Hammadi. You guys even know what it is? First off, some of you, I know Dolly knows. It's the scriptures that were not included when they put together the New Testament and the Holy Bible. They are codices that were found. And unlike the Dead Sea Scrolls, these were found in 1945. So they're relatively new for us. They're found at the base of a cliff near the city of Nag Hammadi in Upper Egypt. That's where it gets the name. It's the Nag Hammadi Library. In over a 6-foot jar, they found inside of this cliff. The cliff, bear with me, I don't speak Arabic very well. Jabal al-Tarif is the name of the cliff.
I'll take it.
Or the name of the cliff where it was found inside a cave. Now, when they opened it, they found leather bound papyrus, folded and wrapped in leather in very good condition. So it's one of the finds of the century, actually, because it helps with the interpretation of the Dead Sea Scrolls that they had found that has missing holes that were just deteriorated away. So together, this is what they were all considered when Christianity was first coming about, right after the crucifixion of Jesus. There were so many different factions of his belief, of what he taught, that this neighbor over here had this opinion, or this group over here. So that's where you get people talking about the Essenes, the Gnostics. All Gnostic means gnostii in Greek
No.
is knowledge. That's all it means. And in the church today, it is turned around into something that is meant that is blasphemy, which is the opposite of knowledge. So,
And let me interrupt you for a minute. Part of the reason that happened, you talk about when it comes to history, the people who win get to write it. So then it's from their perspective that what a lot of people knew about the Gnostic Gospels, even before they were found, is because so they had to be around because the
yeah,
church fathers were writing about them and calling them blasphemous. So
yes,
they're like, oh my God, all these blasphemous books, they're this, they're this, they're this. So they obviously people had the books because they were trying to get you to put it away and by talking that smack about it.
right. And
Smack.
actually, there was one in particular. I'm not even gonna. His name is. He's a Greek. Aficionus. I
Hmm.
think that's how you say his name. Anyway, he came right out and said Gnostics were baby eaters. Where do we get? We hear that in our world today.
Hmm.
As I was researching this today, the parallels was fascinating of what we're going through with the modern nationalist Christian movement.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting that it parallels with the history of all of this. Um, you know, trying to get my frame of mind to get into there are 52 in the collection. There's
Hmm.
52 codices in the collection. However, 6 of them are duplicates. So that leaves 46 texts. I
Hmm.
believe there's 2 or 3 of them that are unreadable because they've deteriorated so much.
Hmm.
So that leaves us like 41 that we have to work with. These texts are the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Judas, the oh, I have a whole big list here. Gospel of Truth, the Revelation of Adam. There is so much. When I was growing up, the little Southern Baptist Christian girl, I would read and go to Sunday school and I would hear the stories, but they didn't make sense because there was a hole in the story.
Hmm.
What is this hole in the story? It just didn't make sense. It was like, um, okay, Adam and Eve are what we came from, but Adam had a wife before he had Eve, but they don't talk about that very much. But it is in just for a few seconds, just a bloop, and that's it. Lilith. So I started questioning actually what was written in our first there was the word book, um, because it didn't answer my questions. And if it was supposed to be a manual for life, it's supposed to answer my questions. And it gave me more questions than it answered because it left holes. Number one thing that woke me up was women have no voice in the church. You're supposed, it's in Revelation, I believe it's, I can't remember where it's at, but anyway, it talks about women are supposed to be silent in the church.
Correct. The writings of Paul, that I do not allow a woman to have authority over a man. And you should, it's very funny because my mom and I were talking about this man who grew up as a Jew, but now he's converted to Christianity. And he was just going on and on about that. And that woman's supposed to be silent, ask your husband. If you're not silent, you're not married, you're supposed to ask your pastor. And my mom was like, your Jewish roots are showing, right?
Yes.
Correct. And then there's contradictions to that, which we can talk about later. But yeah, it's like,
and that showed early on with Paul, because in the story in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, all he did was complain about Mary because she was so close to Jesus, and a woman should not be so close to the rabbi when he's teaching. He was jealous of Mary.
Or even the story of Paul and Thecla. So
Yes.
Thecla is a woman who wanted to convert to Christianity, was hanging out with Paul, and he was always deserting her when she got in trouble. And then some miraculous thing would have to happen to save her.
I mean, and then I think about him in the letters where he's talking about how, he's going to be crucified, but he wanted to be crucified upside down because he was not worthy. And I won't argue with that. That's all I can say, because he was like the teeter-totter.
And the other thing, that also though Paul writes, let me get it. Because it's first of all, what you're reading is half of a communication.
Yes.
Paul was writing letters and interacting with people. So it's not that he was just making statements. He was responding to something. And so you don't know what was the question. So under this circumstance, Paul, do you allow a woman to have authority over men? Because that was like a deal. Remember that the Greeks were wild. I mean, look how Zeus and all the gods were just fucking everybody.
They were the hedonisms.
Just, whatever. Where for Jews that were very Orthodox, that was very not good behavior. So now Paul's trying to bring a very Jewish religion mindset to some wild people. So yes, Paul gets a bad rap, and in some ways he deserves it. But he also writes, these are his words to the gospel and to the church in Galatia. There's neither Jew nor Greek. There's neither bond nor free. There's neither male nor female. For all are one in Christ Jesus. So here's this man saying this, and then you have something that he says that contradicts it. It's like, okay, but what was the question? And in 1st and 2nd Corinthians, they really think there were 2 more letters. So again, I think Blue Rose is talking about it, that, some stuff was said. Of course, Mary was just wiped out of the Bible. And even,
even though she was at every single crucial event.
She was at every single crucial event, especially his resurrection. And so in the Old Testament, like here in the Western world, we believe that a male God could have a child. Now, we know that that's not how it works. Women have children.
Yes.
Right? I'm not talking about trans men, I'm just saying, biologically speaking, if you have a uterus, you're going to have a baby. And if you have a dick, you're not going to have a baby. Right?
It's kind of hard to squeeze that out of that.
Correct. And of course, we know men's pain level, that if they had to have children, there would have never been more than one.
Yeah.
Correct. So Jewish men married by 30. Yes. There's no word for a single man, basically in the Jewish language at that time.
Hi, Manic. Good to see you.
But one of the things that a lot of people don't recognize is that if you have to read the Bible with a scholar's mind, or with the student's mind, not a devotional mind. Now you can read it devotionally, but when you read it with a student's mind, okay, first of all, we knew that it takes a male and a female to make a kid.
Yeah.
Right. Just you got a uterus and some dick.
You got to
That's how
have
they
a
come.
seed and an egg. You got to have a
Correct.
fertile.
There you go. So in the Old Testament, if you read through, they're always talking about this Asherah. Asherah, that when the people get sick of God or they need something extra, they go running to her. They go running to her. And they try to tear down and destroy her stuff all the time. Well, Asherah, Jesus was probably a rabbi. Again, you have to be careful of stuff that we've read. Yeah, so he was rabbinical, but just like the Essenes were rabbis, and they were, I think, celibate, like the priest,
Abs, they were, yeah, they were
right? So
very.
you got it. But so they've been trying to destroy this Asherah. Well, the Asherah was Elohim's wife,
Mhm.
so they knew that God had a wife. And so just all those sorts of things. So that's how women get cut out of the Bible, because they are powerful.
Right.
And so yes, Paul has again, just like here in the South or the Mid South where I'm at now, they found New Testaments that were the slaves were able to have, or those who have been enslaved and robbed from the motherland. And they don't have any of that Jesus is love, blah, blah. It's all full of slave, obey your master, be devoted to God, and bow down and do whatever you're told. So again, it's about the presentation and the
Yes.
information. So Dolly had said earlier, yes, there was a whole political thing, because again, religion, look how it's doing here in the United States. It splits and it can destroy a country. Not the religion itself, but how the people react to it. And so in Roman times, Christianity, Judaism, and so of course for Jews, they just outlawed them and kill you. But for Christianity, Romans decide to uh, take it in, and this is how we do it. We make it the official religion.
Which is perfect that you bring up the Romans, because this brings us to the 4th century and the Emperor Constantine, y'all. His mom became a Christian, and so he wanted to see what it was about. So he sent her to travel and learn about the different kinds of Christians, of these different sects, and what did she believe in. Through this, he became a Christian. He supposedly became a Christian, but it became, he could see where he could take all these different factions, organize them to control them. And this is how we got this. He stripped everything that had anything to do with women of power, being able to manifest on your own. And by this time, you had the Pharisees and those guys who were all, oh no, you need us to do any of this. Through us, you get to God. And that's what Constantine had all that taken out. Gospel of Thomas is one I look forward to talking to you guys about a few days down the road, a few weeks ahead, because that tells you how to manifest 100% perfectly every time. And Jesus taught us that, and it's not completely in the Bible.
Yes, and I
It's
was saying
there,
something.
it's there, but little bits, important parts of sentences are removed.
Yeah, so one of my professors in seminary said that one of the things that used to bother him was that why are the words of Jesus in red but not the actions? Because it was
Yes,
oftentimes what Jesus did that was the example.
yes, yes. I mean, sure, when he was giving the big sermons about the merciful and the meek shall inherit the earth, the Sermon on the Mount and all that. But he fed all those people.
Correct. And even before that, he looked up to heaven. He made that connection with his oneness. And then, okay, I believe, here we go. We're going to feed all these people.
We got all these people. I have a fish and a loaf of bread, and we got hundreds of people to feed. Okay, you're hungry here. And it came from everywhere.
Correct. And so
Yeah,
yes,
there are
I think,
very exciting things in the Gospel of Thomas is my favorite one of all of them, because manifesting is when you're wanting your life to be better, you got to know how to manifest what you're looking for. And
I do think it's
how
funny.
to
Blue
keep it
Rose is
under
cracking me up.
control.
Said Blue Rose is cracking me up that yes, no man could go. She said 14 hours of labor. I don't think a man could go to 3 hours.
14 hours of labor, your last kid?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm just saying, men, so yeah.
No, I used to belong to a women's organization, and our number one thing we used to constantly remind each other is women are the womb of the universe.
Women are the womb of,
We are
yes,
the oven. You can have an egg and you can have a sperm, but when those two meet, it's got to grow somewhere. It's got to be
correct,
nourished and fed somewhere.
correct,
That's us.
correct, correct,
So
correct.
yes, the Constantine in the fourth century, he definitely caused a lot of issues, and it's kind of interesting. That's also when he moved the capital of Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire, from Rome, Istanbul, and called it Constantinople. Here we are, pretty much in with our history of this. Now, Minnassa, my dear, tell us about the.
All right, well, here we go. So I am so excited because, so let me say, if this information becomes like more nerdy and just like too much, you can make a note. I was like salivating at being able to talk.
Me too.
I used to teach Old Testament survey, so I'm so thrilled. So let's talk about the books that are also part of the sacred text. So we're saying that these books, the Nag Hammadi, were taken out of the sacred text and hidden. And that's probably why they were wrapped up and hidden somewhere, because they probably became illegal and
Yeah.
outlawed to have. So you have to hide them. I think there's something very similar to that with the Dead Sea Scrolls that we'll talk about. And so I want to talk about the religious texts of the Western world, all starting in Africa, of course. Say, no, that's Egypt, North Africa. Okay, Wisconsin's in the north of the United States, and Alabama's in the south of the United States, and California's in the west, and New York's in the east, but it's all the US. Okay, so
Right.
let's just not play that game that, well, because of course, why do you want to make them in North Africa? Because then they say the really black people are at the bottom, right? No,
Yeah, they're Nubians.
correct. They're
But
everywhere.
that's bad.
Yeah, we're gonna talk
No,
about the
well, you
Catholic
look at the
Bible's extra
faces.
book. So let's talk about the Tanakh.
I was gonna say, you look at the faces and the statues of the Egyptians. I'm
Indeed,
sorry, darling,
indeed. Look at those
they ain't
noses, those
very
lips.
European looking.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about the Tanakh. So the Tanakh is what we call the Old Testament, but the Tanakh is the Jewish Bible. And that T, N, and then KH, which is that lovely sound I wish that. I remember my teacher told me it comes from the back of your throat. Americans speak in the middle.
Yeah.
So the Tanakh. So the T represents the Torah. And that's the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And to most Jews, that is the word of God. That came from Mount Sinai with Moses. Now, when it becomes the Old Testament and the Christian books, they take the whole thing. But the Jews, the Torah, you can, if you had to throw away everything else, okay, but this is going to stay. The second section is called let me take the Nevi'im, and so that's the prophets. So and the historical books. And then the third division, which is the KH, is the Ketuvim, and that's the wisdom books. So like the book of Psalms, the Song of Songs, or known as the Song of Solomon's, Proverbs, the story of Esther. The one book in the Bible that doesn't mention the name God. And yet she's celebrated every year in the festival of Purim.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that. So that's 39 books. The Tanakh, the Jewish Bible, is 39 books. And that same 39 books comes into the Christian Bible. Now the order is a little bit different. So Psalms goes to like the middle of the book. They mix up the prophets, and they put the historical books in between. But that's because they're trying to tell the story about Jesus, and they want to show Ruth and all those people.
Yeah, how he became David is Solomon.
Correct.
Yeah, the
So now
one.
the New Testament, or the second half of the Christian Bible, has 27 books. So the New Testament and the Old Testament combined are 66 books. And so Blue Rose asked about, so we're going to get to the Catholic Bible, and I'll tell you. So
Yes.
the New Testament is divided basically the Gospels and the Acts of the Apostles. So you have the stories from those who were with Jesus, and then the Acts of the Apostle. So my seminary professor said that the Gospels are about what Jesus did, master teacher Jesus, and then the Acts is about the Holy Spirit, that divine entity moving. Then you have the epistles. And so most people know about Paul, but there's a book from James, who is considered to be the blood brother of Jesus. You have books by Peter, and then John. Let me think. And then, like, there's books that aren't named. Hebrews, right? Hebrews, this is a book being written to Jewish people. It doesn't say who it's by. And even, let me keep going. And then the last book is the Revelation, which is the revelation of John, would be more accurate because it talks about the vision that he had there.
And
So
that's
now,
I think that's probably isn't that the most controversial book in the Bible of all the Bibles? Because so many people interpret it so many ways.
that's true. And because of there's a bunch of apocalyptic writings. And so most, like most traditional Christians want to make it, look, Dolly's trying to steal my thunder by putting the information about the apocalypse.
She knows this topic really well.
And so, but the apocalyptic books were really written about Rome because they were being so horrible. And so let's talk about, nowadays I can say, not that I want to kill the man who's the president, but I can say I want to kill the president. And there's I don't think you can really say that, but like, I want to slap the president, right? You can say that and there's no issues. I don't want to slap him. But in that day, you couldn't say that. So you had to create this whole symbolic way of talking about Rome and them getting what's due them and how evil they are. So you had to create a story about it. And then in the end, they get it. Yep. So now the Catholic Bible has,
Dolly,
has 72. The Catholic Bible has 72 books because it has the Tanakh, which is 39 books. It has the traditional New Testament, which is 27 books. And then it has what's called the Apocrypha. Yes. So the Apocrypha, as Dolly has told, is what's called the Deuterocanon, or it's like the second canon, right? So, and only the Catholic Bibles have them. The Protestant denominations don't even honor those books. Well, I don't. That's a harsh way to say, but they don't consider them canonical in any way. And so those books are Tobit, Judith, First and Second Maccabees, Wisdom, Sirach, Baruch, and then additions to Esther and Daniel. And so it's funny because the story of Hanukkah comes out of Maccabees. We wouldn't know that story, but about Judas Maccabees fighting against the Romans again, and then they need oil. They're able to open the temple. They're so excited to do that, and they want to burn the menorah. They want to burn the candles, but they only have oil for one day. But they're going to do it anyway. They're just going to go send people to get it, and the oil burn that whole day.
Hey, and they manifested enough oil, huh?
Exactly. And one of the things that I like about that, as I always used to say when I was in the traditional Black church, that should be a story that they preach about, because part of the Black mindset, or part of the Black spiritual talk, is God will make a way out of no way. And that's what that story is all about. Where there was no way, you see the divine stepping in, because our mind is limited. Right. But this is unlimited. And again, this whole story about oil, there's a story, I don't know if it's Elisha or Elijah. I think it's Elijah, who a widow comes to him and it's like, hey, I need money, or they're going to take my children. How's God going to work this out? And so he tests her belief, says, get this oil and get as many containers as you can. So again, there's just a little bit of oil. Right. And she pours and pours and pours and pours and pours and fills up all those containers, and then is able to sell that oil and get herself out of debt. So again, there's this constant theme of there's only in our mind is there not enough. Yes. But that the divine is unlimited. And if you're willing to step into magic, you help with that. Okay, end of my sermon there.
Now, I got to tell you what I just heard from my spirit guides just said. Get the hell out of your own way.
Indeed, it's very true.
My
It's
spirit
very
guide is
true.
kind
So
of
now I
quirky.
want to talk about a set of books that's called the Pseudepigrapha. No, I'm not having a seizure. Just the story of Elisha. All right, it's the Pseudepigrapha. So the Pseudepigrapha are a set of books. Like here, listen. Here's the names. So Third and Fourth Maccabees, the Assumptions of Moses, Life of Adam and Eve, Ascension of Isaiah, the Psalms of Solomon. And so what it is that if I was a disciple of Katie and she passed away and I wanted to tell you to obey what she said, I'm going to write a book about what she told me or what I learned from my time with her. And then I'm going to call it the Gospel of Katie, even though I've written it after she's passed away.
Right.
Right, because it's give authority. So here's a very interesting thing that I saw today. So the pseudepigrapha, pseudo being false, right?
Right.
Pigrapha being writing. So false writing is not that the stuff in there is false, but who it's attributed to, right? That Moses couldn't have written something in 4 CE, right? He was
Right.
long dead. Well, one of the articles that I saw, and this is very true, is that the whole Bible could be considered the pseudepigrapha.
Yes.
Because there's nothing that says this is how, there's nothing in the book of Matthew that says, I, Matthew, wrote this. I, Luke, wrote this. I, Mark, wrote this. I, John, wrote this. That
Yeah.
Moses, okay, we'll take the Torah out, right? Because that came down from, but there's nothing that identifies those things. Who was the woman who said she made to eat from the last of her meal, from then her cabinet was never empty? I don't know. I'll have to Google that. I don't remember that as a Bible story.
I don't remember that one either.
Yeah.
Made to eat.
Oh, yes. Uh, yes, she gave one of the prophets her last meal. He said, I'm
Oh,
hungry and you got to feed me. She said, I only have enough to feed my family. He says, well, if you feed me, it's either Elijah or Elisha. If you feed me, your family will not go without. And she, again, in a step of faith, gave him the last of her food. And then her family never went without eating.
yes.
So it could be that even, we believe what we've been told about the Bible, but we don't have any real evidence, right? There's nothing in there. Again, even the books of Paul, the only time we really know they were by him, and this is my bias, is when he's whining about the fact that the original apostles won't acknowledge him as an apostle. So then he begins all his books like, I, Paul, the apostle called by Jesus Christ to serve the Gentiles. It's like, dude, just say that Peter and John and all those people are like, no, dude, you not one of us. You weren't with us. You never saw the living Christ. You no, but because he'll say, I went to talk with them and they withstood me. Really? What did they say? Why were they not down with you, dude? How about because you killed so many people? Hmm. Right. So in those books, you
Mhm.
include Paul because he's acknowledging himself. But not all the books that are assigned to him are really his, because like they say that he wrote the
Yeah.
book of Hebrews, but it's stylistically different. It's not the same as his other letters. And first, second, and third John are not the same as the Gospel of John or the Revelation of John.
Right.
So again, we've taken a lot on faith about these books. And so they could also be called the pseudepigrapha, or, so Saul became Paul of Tarsus. So Saul was trying to kill Christians, right? I mean, so here's my conspiracy theory, since y'all asked me. So Saul was trying to kill Christians, right? He was a devout, he was probably a Sadducees or a Pharisee. So these are very devout men of the law. And this Jesus guy was just messing stuff up. And people were giving their money, they weren't coming to the temple. And so he was killing those people and bringing them before court. And so he then was on his way to kill someone.
Hmm.
And the man got a vision and said, this guy's coming to your house, but you got to be nice to him. And the man's like, do you know who this dude is? He kills people. Well, on the way, Paul got blinded because he saw the divine Christ, the light of the divine Christ. He then goes to this guy's house, and the guy's like, hello. and then Paul is converted to Christianity. So, if I
Mhm.
wanted to destroy a religion, what is the best way to do it? From inside of it or outside?
Inside.
Right. So I always wonder about the writings of Paul, and so very, very interesting. So let's talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. So Katie had talked about those already. So the Dead Sea Scrolls have 40% of the Hebrew scriptures in them. So they found like Ezekiel and Isaiah in there, and then about 30% are Second Temple. So um, the Solomon's temple was destroyed and they rebuilt it.
Mm.
That's the story of Hanukkah, of getting the temple back. About 30% of those, so they're books like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilee, Tobit, Wisdom of Sirach, and then Psalms has 150 divisions, and this has Psalms 152, 3, 4, and 5. And then the remainder are some sectarian books about this is the rules for this and this is what we do with this. And so there's a lot of sacred text out there that most people don't know anything about on purpose. And so that is sort of the Paul was a Pharisee.
Rachel's
That's
grandpa wa Rachel's grandpa was a pastor.
which is very good. Which
So
is
I
very
just wanted
good.
you to know that's why she has that's why she's got so much knowledge.
So we have a lot of sacred texts from the Western religions. See, but we haven't even talked about the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching. I mean, there are other sacred texts that talk about cosmology, how the world began.
Yes.
And so these are just the texts that we know over here. And then, again, those other sacred texts, one of my favorite religions that came out of the Middle East that just didn't there's still people practicing is Zoroastrianism. That is also a more monotheistic religion than Christianity. I would say Christianity is um, polytheistic, but that's a whole different story.
I was gonna say that sounds like a deep story.
A whole different story. So those books are sort of the foundation. You have the traditional Tanakh, and then you have the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are stuff to do with that. And then you have the Christian Bible or the Protestant Bible, which would be more accurate. And then that's where the Nag Hammadi Index comes in. That these are books that are adjacent to, or I'll say adjacent to, but they're giving an additional informations. Yes, Muslim Mary is very much a part of the Quran. That's why I didn't even mention the Quran as well as Jesus, right? So
Oh, yes. Muhammad spoke of Jesus.
yes, the Abrahamic religions are
Yeah,
Judaism, traditional Christianity, and Muslim. They all start, or Islam, they all start with the story of Abraham, that
exactly.
he is the father of these sacred religions moving forward.
Right. Yep.
And the other thing is, Christians, the other thing is that the promise to Abraham was made that his first son was going to get the blessing, his first son. Well, Isaac is not his first son, but somehow they create this whole thing. It's like, you take a look at what's happening in the Middle East, all that money those Arab nations gets, like, yeah, the blessing went to the first son.
Yeah,
So it's very interesting.
it
Very
is. And it's really I don't know, I think partly because I am consider myself very sheltered, even though I was a travel agent and I've traveled and stuff, but I'm an American who lives way over here in America, where all these religions that are yeah, started in the Middle East, and that is a place that I've never been. And so it's like, to me, it's a grasping at a touchy feely thing, and it's even more touchy feely than what I do every day.
exactly. I mean, it takes a lot of faith.
It does
Me with
because
the tarot cards or the oracle cards, I have something in my hand. But it takes a lot of
yeah, I
faith
got a
to
tool.
believe here are these magical books, and we don't really know who wrote them, and there's nobody's names in them, and this is the story about these people. Believe it.
Yeah, and they call us a flock. There's a reason they use that word.
Well, I'll say there's two reasons, or one, maybe a more positive reason is that, remember, the text of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and even Muslim, they were agrarian people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they understood that. So I don't know if that's where you were going, Katie, or that sheep are kind of
I was going the
non-thinking.
sheeper way. I was going control them, keep them. They're sheep. Sheep
Correct.
are dumb. We keep them under control.
And that
Keep
is
them
so
dumb. We can control them.
that is so not the way that Master Teacher Jesus presents things.
Absolutely not.
And so one of the things Gandhi made a statement that I love Jesus, but I don't love the people that represent him.
Yes. That's always been me. I have always said that I believe in the teachings of Jesus, but I do not believe in Christians.
Right. And Jesus said, I am the good shepherd.
Yes.
And so tov, meaning, well, now I'm going, meaning the complete, that a shepherd takes. So one of the things that we, as most people don't know, that sheep are really kind of dumb animals. So
Kind
without
of.
a shepherd, they die because
Very
they don't
dumb.
get cared. Their hair gets stuck in their eyes, and their poop gets stuck on their butt, which can kill them. So the good shepherd is taking care of the sheep, is grooming them and giving them their substance. Yes. So I think there's a bigger meaning to that.
They also, when
And
they're
that's just
giving
my
birth,
opinion.
if they get tired, they just stop.
Ah,
And the sheep and the lamb will die. Both will die. They get wet. Say they're out in the rain and their wool gets really wet. Well, they'll lay down because it's heavy.
correct. And so the
And it
good
rains
shepherd,
on them some more and they can't get back up. So
correct,
they lay there
correct,
and die.
correct.
A lamb, wolf, wolves will attack a lamb and they won't make a sound.
Yeah, I will say
You
that,
ever hear a rabbit when a
correct.
coyote's going after a rabbit? They're silent all the rest of the time and they scream. But lambs don't make a sound. But they're
Hmm.
so cute the rest of the time. But when they need to make a sound, they don't. So yeah, they're not real bright. So,
Hmm.
but I think that, yeah, keep us dumbed down.
And I don't think, and again, it's because, and let me tell you the beauty of the internet, the beauty of the world be getting smaller. Even one of the things, like, my daughter has showed me, my daughter's in South Africa right now, and has showed me they have like gorgeous malls, huge ass malls. And I think, yes, this is what diamond money, this is what gold money has done. Thank God for the people, they weren't slaves, so they were getting 1 cent an hour versus zero.
Yeah,
But this is what was built on the backs of,
that's blood money, built on blood
correct.
money.
But they'll say, oh, look at these ooga booga in their little huts. It's like, well, look at fucking up the street, their huge mall they built. So yes,
Right.
it's about what's presented. And so I am so grateful for the expansion of knowledge. When women went to school and started going to college, they're saying, this stuff you're saying is not true. This isn't how history went. When African Americans got in college, they started saying, no, this isn't it. And when Latinx people, so once we got into the schools, we got to get this info and say, this is some bullshit. Right?
And
Or
it's interesting because I was listening to Rachel Maddow earlier and she was talking about privilege and legacy in colleges because of what's going on with trying to do away with yeah, making it so that poor children of color, kids of color, can go to college. They're trying to take that, they want to take that away.
well, talking about affirmative action, and
Right.
again, I will say, though, here in the South, one of the things that I recognize is there's a lot of really ignorant white people that
Oh
here in
my
the South, they want
God,
to make sure
yes.
nobody goes to school
I
except for
live
a
there.
few.
I live in
You
Arizona.
know
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of really ignorant white people
that,
that
on
went to
purpose.
school.
I'm
That went,
saying no. I'm saying uneducated and ignorant, because that's how they say. So you better watch out for those niggers, right? They're going to take your stuff from you. Well,
yeah,
you're not educated, but you're pretty beautiful, pure white skin, right? They, again, just as the less you know, the more easy you are controlled.
yeah. That's
I'm
right.
saying,
part of the reason why they took the parts out that have become the Nag Hammadi, is because they encouraged people to ask questions, and questions were considered the enemy of the church.
Yes. I mean, even so, this my mom was talking about this converted Jewish man who's now a pastor, going on and on and on and on and on about how man was made first. So, okay, yes, if you start the Bible at Genesis 2, that story is correct.
Right.
But what I do know is that there's a Genesis 1 where male and female are made on the same day at the same time. But they don't want to talk about that. And if you don't read the Bible, see, that's the other thing. Most Christians don't even read the Bible. So you
Most
don't know what it
Christians
says in there.
most Christians don't think that if it's not the King most Christians think if it's not the King James version, that it's not the real Bible, and that if they want to read the Bible, they have to read one of them other Bibles because they don't understand the King James
I
version.
had a man tell me when I was the things that people know that they shouldn't know. So I had a man tell me, I was teaching Old Testament survey at a Church of God in Christ college. And he said to me, if I'm not teaching from the 1620 King James Version, I'm not teaching from the right Bible. So I went to the board and I wrote 1580, 1690, 1720, and 1838.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, who in here is 50 or older? I was not at that time. I said, when you went to school, did you use a grammar book from 1590? No. Who here is 40, right? I said, we don't use the grammar books from those days. Okay, so why are you wanting me to read a book from that time using
Exactly.
that grammar, right? You have to, people, they don't think they're so. This is the other thing he asked me. He says, well, if you're a minister and you're a woman, you don't go into the sanctuary and preach when you're on your period, right? I was like,
Because you're impure when you're on your
oh, why
period.
the
I'm
fuck do
sorry.
you even know that scripture? That's what I said in my mind. So
That's
I said,
ancient.
so this is
Wow.
my response. I said, I would love to not go when I'm on my period, as long as every pastor who had sex with his wife the night before also did not go into the pulpit because he was ceremonially unclean. So again, why do you know that scripture about the shit about women, but you don't know this about, And
Yeah.
again, again. And so the beauty of the Nag Hammadi, of the pseudepigrapha, of even the Apocrypha, I give the Catholics some credit for a group that wants to really just lock down and control stuff. They put some freaky books in their Bible. You
They
gotta.
got some freaky beliefs, and some freaky things happen to their people because of those
Well,
beliefs.
that's true. Like, you were talking about that they were saying the Gnostics were children eater. We know there was a time that they said that the early church were cannibals.
Right.
Because why? They said they ate the body and blood of Christ. So
Nice.
that I grew up as in a Protestant church, that I was having symbolically that bread and grape juice. Except for the one time I went to a Lutheran church and was actually wine, I didn't know it.
The wine,
My
yeah.
hands were like, in
Yeah,
church,
it's
like,
real
oh, I'm
wine in
having
the
a seizure, help me.
Catholic too.
Right?
It's
But
real
that wine
wine.
and grape juice is symbolic.
Yeah.
In the Catholic Church, I'm just saying, they believe it is the actual, it's like, ew,
Yeah. Yeah.
transcend. What is,
And,
oh,
and wherever
hypostasis. It's hypostasis. But again, look at the
there's a
faith for
difference
that.
between remember me when you eat and drink, and eating me and remember me because
Correct.
you're eating me and drinking
Hey,
me.
hey, Mama Bear. So
Hi,
that's
Mama
part of
Bear.
what I'm saying is that your faith, what is it really based on? Have you ever even asked? I have this book, but you don't know who wrote it because some people told you this is who wrote it, but they don't know that. I'm just saying.
That's
So
right.
the Nag Hammadi, the pseudepigrapha, the Apocrypha, all that stuff, those could really be it. Let me tell you this book. You are a badass. Okay. This is a sacred book because it helped me, it empowered me. You don't need a book that was written thousands and thousands of years ago to be empowering you.
I'm showing you my books, and then I've got this one. This into Kabbalah.
Essential Kabbalah, again, this is about So one of the reasons that Kate and I wanted to do this is to give people an opportunity to find out about these texts and to right, that these are ways to help expand your life. We need more spiritual people to help raise this planet's vibes, and that comes about by stepping out, reading something new. You can read the Nag Hammadi and say, I don't agree with this at all. That's fine. But even by saying, I'm going to read this new book, you open and expand it,
Yes,
the consciousness. That's what we're looking to raise the consciousness.
exactly. Exactly. And also, I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions as they're waking up from that sheeple position that they've been in for most of their life. They're awakening to some of these things that we're talking about. These questions are coming up for them. And there's going to be a lot more of those coming out, more and more and more. Um, because we're in that shift, we're in this change, all
Yes,
the energies are
yes.
changing, so everything that from the past, all that history we just talked about, it's going to go out the door. It's all different. It's all so much of what we hold on to and grasp onto as our familiar things and the things we hold on to dearly. I keep getting these messages from spirit to let you're attached. That is a material thing. It's a physical thing. You're attached. Let it go. You cannot expand spiritually and you are attached to the material. Let it go.
It's
That
very true.
scares you the most to let go of. Let go.
Indeed. And understand that when people, I took a meditation class, and one of we got put into small groups, and one of the ladies said she hates change. And so when there's change, she wigs out. So look at how the world is changing, and things are changing energetically. So we understand what's happening energetically, why I'm feeling different, why things looking different. We have a practice, whether it's our oracle cards, our tarot cards, we meditate. We have a people that we talk with, but there are people who are watching the foundations of everything they believed slipping away. And their
Yes,
reaction is going to be frightened.
they're
You back
terrified.
an animal into a corner, it's going to come out fighting for its life. And so that's a lot of what we're seeing. And so for us, I just want to encourage us all to be more gracious. Doesn't mean you have to put up with it, but to step back and say, how did you feel? I remember when the first time I read a book, it's
Hey, Marvita.
by Abraham, Ask and you shall receive. And so when I read it and they said, your thoughts, you are responsible for your life. And I said, this is some bullshit because my life is messed up. And I closed the book. But eventually my heart called me back to it and said, if you're responsible for your messed up life, you can become responsible for your fabulous life. Correct? But my initial response, me, hell no. Right? So
When I was in the eighth grade, I heard someone say that life is just what you make it. You don't like your life, change it. You're the only one who can.
And that's what got Katie and I wanting to talk about this, the Nag Hammadi Index. And actually, Katie got me thinking of maybe I'll do something like an Old Testament survey class on my channel and take people to the Old Testament, but we'll look at it from a scholarly and from a metaphysical point of
Ooh.
view.
I would take that class in a
It
heartbeat.
really bugs me that people talk about, well, Adam and Eve, because it's like read the Bible.
I've got goosebumps on that, Minnassa.
Well,
There's your validation.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, angels, for touching Katie. So
Yes,
I'm just
ma'am.
saying, Old Testament survey, new, that people need to be educated, myself included, but just have an understanding because there is such a beauty in all those texts, even like the Song of Solomon. There's like a
Oh,
sexy, raunchy book in the Bible.
I got a story about
It's
that
actually
for you.
not raunchy, it's actually just very sexual but it's not written like I want to do this, but it's like I love to touch your apples. It's like,
Oh,
oh yeah,
yeah,
come
yeah,
on,
yeah,
baby,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, he goes into the shapes of your beautiful black breasts, and
Yeah, I mean,
he's
it's
talking
just
about Shiva and how beautiful, how much he loves her.
correct. There's just so much beauty there, but it gets clouded. There's so many people who are doing deconstruction right now. There was a woman here in Tennessee, because of course Tennessee can just be so lame. They're really trying to go after the drag queens here. And so a lady got
Mm,
in front of a Tennessee council here and said, "Let me tell you, I have never been molested at a drag show, but I've been molested twice at church." Right. And then it was like, boom. Right.
let
And
that
so,
shit go down. Yeah,
just talking about like here, the Southern Baptists had to admit that for 20 years they've been sweeping under the rug when women come to them about what's going on. And they finally, I think a woman got it passed,
200, 200 pages of
had
complaints.
to take it to court. The Jehovah's Witnesses just got in trouble in Pennsylvania.
Yep,
So all that stuff, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And just
absolutely.
like men know the power of women, most religions are matriarchal.
Yep,
Most religions are matriarchal, or there is like the Shiva Shakti, there is that yin yang where they understand that when there is that balance, there is that power. So when you have absolute power corrupts absolutely. I see that here in the South. I say Jim Crow is still alive and well.
Jim
It's just
Crow never
hidden in
left.
different ways.
Yeah, it
You
never
know?
left. It just got a new face.
Correct. So that's why I tell my friends, come move to the South. We need to change the we need to change the vibe like they did in Atlanta.
Yeah,
But again, change is happening, and we can go with the flow and hold space, that even for all the anger you may have for like, why did they take people out of the Bible and I can't stand Paul, and don't be calling me no sheep because I think for myself, and why you do this. Remember, they were doing the best they could at that time,
that's right.
and we are here at a place, so just like Katie said, we can say thank you, no thank you, let's take what's good out of there and let's move forward with it. Just like people say, "Oh, yeah, I thought you were a healer. Why'd you let your wife get chemotherapy? Couldn't you?" I was like, "Listen, I'm not going to tell God how He's going to heal anybody. I'm not going to tell the divine, well, the only way you can heal my wife when she was having her medical issues is through this. So what we do is go ahead and get that chemo, because what I'm going to pray and believe is what's good for you is going to stay, and what's not going to pass out."
Gonna go.
Right.
When
So
I had
again,
cancer, when I had cancer, I will tell you right now, people would tell me, "Why are you doing the chemotherapy? You should be going on faith," because I was very much, I mean, yeah, I was wanting to go to seminary. And you should be believing going on faith. And it's like, because every time you have a surgery, what do you do with your pastor? You pray that God guides that surgeon's hands. So, yeah, I'm praying that God uses, that the
correct,
universe
correct,
uses these medical people to save my life so that I can help other people. And if I
correct,
die, that's okay
correct.
too, because my death will help someone else live.
Correct. And I want to just, Dolly saying the Bible's meant to be read critically, and Christians are discouraged from reading critically. I say Christians are discouraged from reading it, period. And so I'd say a Bible's supposed to read academically and scholarly, and then yes, critically. But even if you would just read it, that's
Yes.
what I like about my Pentecostal churches. We used to have a thing, it'd start in January and it would take you through the whole Bible. So when you get in like Leviticus and all those books with all that, take us cow and do this, and it was like, okay, I but at least then, you've got to read. Say, well, I'm a spiritual person. I got my tarot cards. What do you know about the history of tarot? What do you know about tarot cards? What do you know about oracle cards? What do you know about spirituality? Don't. I was gonna say, don't get me started, but I'm already started. To me, there's a lot of people that do tarot readings that are not spiritual. They're not connected to spirit.
Yes.
That is the opinion of Minnassa, also known as Villa Wills. I'm just saying, you can't take just because you feel spirit, just like, okay, I'm white. Okay, I can't just make that proclamation,
Right. Right.
you know, and,
Exactly.
you
Um,
know, or
yeah.
I'm a pineapple.
But it was like divination. And kind of all along, it was a game to begin with, first off. The history of tarot, it was a card game.
Well,
Uh,
I'll say the history of tarot that starts in Europe was that. but it goes farther back than that. But again, what do you know about it?
The
I'm
Rider
spiritual.
Waite was a card game. We'll put
Correct.
it
I'm
that way.
spiritual. How are you feeding your soul? What are you doing? I was a pineapple. Yes. I'm just saying. Again, they people want to point their fingers at Christian, at a spiritual. I'm saying, how are you being any different? You're just being led. Are you in it? Are you receiving it? Or are you just going along? Well,
Are
on
you
YouTube
walking
channel,
the
they said
Are you walking the walk or talking the talk? You need to walk
exactly,
the talk. You gotta
exactly,
walk the talk. And that's
exactly.
like I start the point I was going to make about tarot cards and tarot readers that aren't connected to spirit. Those are fortune tellers.
Correct. Everyone has the gift.
Mhm.
Everyone can touch their intuition, but not everyone's called to do it in that way. And so
And
I'm
not everyone who has the gift can do it in as a career or a profession
correct.
because of
Correct.
the way it drains your energy. If you're
Correct.
not fully connected to spirit when you're doing it, it's going to zap you.
Correct. And the other thing is one time some person came like, I don't believe in those tarot cards. Can you just read my energy? So I'm like, again, okay. So one stood in front of him, just ran my hand down the front of him. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh. I'm like, okay. If I told you that same thing with a deck of tarot cards, how would it have been any different? Right?
Exactly. Right. Divination is divination.
Correct.
That's we
I
had
see.
I gave advice to one of our tarot card readers that his family didn't approve of tarot, and he was wanting to get some divining rods, and they were having a fit. He wanted a pendulum or divining rods, and
Oh
his
my
parents were
Lord.
having a fit. And I was like, no, okay, I have a question. You live in Texas, sweetheart.
They use that all the time.
What's your daddy gonna do when he needs to drill a well for some water? It's called
Mhm.
water witching for a reason. It's
Indeed.
divination and it is accepted the world over.
Indeed.
So he was
Indeed.
like, thank you so much. They got off his case.
Indeed. So now I'm here preaching and going on, but I have not, my wife and I did not ride in together today or home. And I came right to a class and now I'm with all you lovely people. So I'm going to excuse myself because I want to be able to spend
Don't
some
worry
time
about
with
it.
her before I go to bed. But Katie will be back on the 15th.
Yes, we will be back on the 15th.
Yeah, so go vote. We're not here next week
Oh,
because it's
please
voting.
do. I
Please vote.
voted 2 weeks ago. I'm in Arizona where we've got those lovely gentlemen who like to sit at the polling places with their guns and crap to intimidate people. I heard the best idea from Spiritual Growth Tarot today. Drive past in your car, take a look and see if they're there. If they're there, go get a MAGA hat, put your MAGA hat on, go vote, say, yep, hi, and leave.
LOL. Or go by and tell
Go
your
buy a red
archangels.
hat. It doesn't have to say MAGA, just buy a red
I
hat.
read that, or tell your archangels, I would like for you to remove these people. It's all
I
good. So,
actually I was a little disappointed because I voted by mail, so 2 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, I would have loved to just like stand about 3 feet in front of them and just not said a word, just stare at them,
oh
then
my
turn
God.
around and walk away.
Dolly cracks me up. I love that. For corn's sakes, she came to my
I know
mindfulness class
her
and we had
for
something.
Christmas. She's
And
like,
I said, for
oh,
corn's
Jiminy
sake.
Christmas. She's always Jiminy Christmas.
No, guys, for corn's sake. I love it. So
That's that
all of
Wisconsin
you, thank
girl.
you. Thank you for your
Thank,
discussion.
thank
Katie, I'm going to
you.
leave you to finish this out, or what do you?
We'll both check out together.
All
This is
right.
our deal to do together. This is our partnership, my sweet. Thank you so much, Minnassa. Thank you, everybody,
Yes, thank you, everybody.
so much for being here.
And
And
I think the only
see
person
you
I
for
didn't know was Blue
Christmas.
Rose. Please subscribe to my channel.
Yes, please do subscribe to her channel. And you are all subscribers here. I recognize y'all, so I'm not going to tell you to subscribe again. But if there's lurkers out there, I love my
That's
lurkers.
true. And you can share Katie's channel so your friends will know to subscribe.
That's
You
right.
can share her link on your Facebook page or Instagram.
That's right. And yeah, I also have an Instagram page that has a lot of stuff going on in there too. And what have you got coming up this week as far as your channel goes, Minnassa, right quick?
So this Saturday, I'm having my last. I had 3 healing sessions. This is the third one with Tony from Shamanic
Shining Hawk Healing?
Shining Hawk Healing. I'm gonna have Tony on my show. We'll end it with the healing thing. Like I had Sonia Rain Lee, I had Red Lentil Healing Adrian, and now I have Tony.
I've got goosebumps because those are 3 of my favorite people. They've all of them have been on my show. I love it.
Powerful
More than
women.
once, actually.
Powerful women.
I
I
love
love
all
them.
3 of them are my friends.
I
So
love them.
I do too. I got goosebumps again. I have tomorrow at 11 o'clock is my middle of the day personal readings. And now I am doing current events. So it's whatever you want me to read on. Now that we all have community pages, if you want to put your questions in the community page, it'll give me a jump start. And Lightworkers Roundtable on Thursday at 5 Pacific. And that will be Medium Kim Copeland. And I'm really, really looking forward to meeting her and talking to her about. I love her spirit artwork that she does. She draws people's auras. It's just beautiful stuff. So I thank you all. Love you all. Be kind to one another. Be
And
kind
yourself.
when you go to vote. My prayers are with you. And you run into obnoxious people, just don't confront. Just go about your business and go about your way. I love you. Be kind to yourselves. Bye-bye now. Take care.